Getting stronger is the key to longevity and the key to reduced injuries. When you are strong, your body becomes tougher and resilient and much harder to break. So strength training, take the proactive approach. Before you reach a point where, I hurt myself, then I have to go see physio, you can avoid that entire trip. I'm basically killing my business by saying that.
Welcome to the Move Well, Live More podcast, where we discuss topics from exercise and nutrition to health and lifestyle tips for your overall quality of life.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Move Well, Live More podcast. I'm May, a coach and an educator here at Move. Our topic today is how to navigate training with pains or injuries. Now, this is a topic where a lot of athletes, fitness enthusiasts, as well as our very own clients tend to face. Whether you are a seasoned lifter or you have just started your fitness journey, this is a goldmine of knowledge that will empower you to overcome obstacles that is relevant to pain and injury, allowing you to continue your quest for strength and resilience. Now, joining us today is a very special guest. He is very well known to be a skillful physiotherapist, but also a true powerhouse in the world of barbell sports. Now, hint, he also has his own podcast with the same name. Our guest today is multi-talented in many different disciplines, including CrossFit, bodybuilding, and powerlifting. Now, what sets him apart is his unwavering passion when it comes to biomechanics of lifting, also the role of physiotherapy that helps to enhance sports performance as well as facilitating injury recovery. Now, his approach blends the evidence-based practice together with his own experience, making him the perfect guest to shed the light on today's topic. Let us welcome Luke Lango.
Hello. Thank you for having me. So exciting and really fun and new to be on the opposite end of a podcast this time around.
Yeah, this is making me very nervous because I'm with a sort of seasoned podcaster, right? It makes me just like,
Oh, don't worry about it. Be as relaxed as you can be. It's really just a conversation between two fitness enthusiasts.
Okay.
Like you and I have the same passion for what we do. We both specialize in our crafts and we want to just be able to serve our clients better.
yes, I do believe that once we get into conversation, I will look a lot more relaxed for sure. Let's jump straight into understanding you a little bit more because you have a very unique skill set, which is both a coach as well as a physiotherapist. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit more? How did you get onto this journey?
Okay, so I started off as a personal trainer. I hadn't gone to physiotherapy or uni yet to study physiotherapy, and I got into it because I sustained a very traumatic injury. It was during one of my powerlifting meets. I was at the time, I was like 22, 23 years old maybe, and I was attempting, again at the time, the junior world record for a barbell back squat. During the attempt, I was going down in my squat and I had not braced properly. I heard and I felt like a pop and snap sensation in my lower back. And as soon as that happened, I couldn't stand up. So I couldn't stand up and, the spotters had to remove the bar. I mean, I could stand up after they removed the bar, but for some reason, I couldn't bend my hips. I felt really tight in my back. Now, at the time, I didn't know what had happened. I just assumed that, it was just like a typical muscle sprain, pull kind of thing. I still went on to compete.
So that's like not the end of the competition?
No, I still went to continue competing. And funny enough, I still won.
Oh.
Yeah, I still won, but with a really broken back at the time. But what inspired me, or at least what got me onto this path of wanting to become a physio is because that injury, I discovered much later on that I had sustained not one, but 3 herniated discs in my lower back. One of the discs in my back had torn. There's something in disc called, it's like a gel-like substance, right? So we have your discs and then you have your intervertebral disc. Basically something inside there was seeping out and it was pressing onto one of the nerves along my spine. So that caused me a lot of pain.
And this kind of injury is also quite common, right?
Disc herniations can be quite common, but it's really like the severity of it it depends on individuals. So when I sustained that injury, the first thing you do is you go see specialists or people to help with it. So I went to see physiotherapists and I saw multiple physiotherapists and none of them could help me with my issue. And at some point it got frustrating because They didn't understand the sport, because the sport of powerlifting is essentially how to back squat, bench press, and deadlift. And instead of like trying to help me, they were telling me that, oh, you should lift lighter, or you shouldn't deadlift. They're trying to correct my posture, which at the time I didn't feel was the issue. And again, it was just like a bunch of really frustrating encounters with these physiotherapists. And I went to see specialists after that. I went to see surgeons. I went to see doctors, orthopedic surgeons. Again, the same go-to answer for them was surgery or quit. So being that young and being told that you should quit a sport which you love is really heartbreaking. Thankfully, at the moment or period of time where I had almost given up, I encountered two very knowledgeable physiotherapists who were my seniors at the time, and they had already had experience with athletes doing in the barbell sport scene. And so we came to sort of an agreement where we would work together, and they would treat me for my injury. And surprisingly enough, whatever they did with me at the time worked really well. They got me back from a very injured and frail state to not only healthier, pain-free, but I was able to go past whatever performance I was able to do. And so I got stronger, I got better, and I got fitter. And I remember that feeling until to this day, that the reason that made me want to go into physiotherapy is that if I had the opportunity, or if I had the chance to help someone who's ever in my situation, in my case, then that should be my calling. That I wanted to equip myself with the knowledge to help these individuals. Like, the individuals that are very frustrated, very stressed, like always given either bad information, old information, saying that if you continue to lift weights, you'll hurt yourself, which is really not true, you know? So that's the story behind why and how I started.
Oh, I'm so glad that we have you on here today, because honestly, I think there are a lot of athletes out there that wants to continue their sports regardless of age, to be honest.
Yes.
Because we do have a lot of people going through midlife crisis, and then they start engaging in the sports, and then starts to see the benefit of staying active.
Yeah.
And they really want to continue on that journey. But unfortunately, if they start a sports late without proper foundation or conditioning to it, they often get into injuries. And that's where the frustration comes in, whereby I believe that's also one of the reasons why there is a bit of a distrust in physios, because not many physios, or not all physios, can help them to get back to their sporting journey, which most of the time they are encouraged to not do so much, back off.
Yes.
Yeah, which definitely adds on to the frustration.
It's very unfortunate, because when I went to college, or when I went to university, right, I was at a much, I say, later age than most people that around my age group that actually went to university. Most people, their path would be after high school, go to college, right, and then get a job and whatnot. For me, it was really more of the reversed order. So I got a job, then I went to college. I managed to put myself through college, right? So when I entered, I had a lot more, say, working experience, and sort of more experience working with individuals in the fitness scene. So I was a bit disappointed in the fact that physiotherapy, there was a component to treating athletes, but it was a very small component, very, very small. Majority of the education materials that they taught us revolved around rehabbing individuals that typically have a fracture, or if you're having diabetes, or if you're all kinds of other aspects like breathing and those kinds of things, right? And so when it came to the fitness segment, it was very basic stuff. And truthfully, if you ask me, it was also outdated. So it's probably why, it's not a fault of the therapist that they don't know what they don't know. So I feel like it's up to us to be better educators as well, or at least for the government or head of departments of these institutions to make fitness a priority. Because if you are healthier, you'd have lesser diseases.
Yep, true.
So it's not just about helping someone who's already gotten injured. It's about taking the proactive approach and making them healthy before they get injured. Things like that.
Yep. I think I would like to also add on that, as much as we keep using the word athlete, right?
Yes.
We do recognize that a lot of people experience pains, injuries on their journey of getting healthier, not necessarily fitter. So our topic today, I would like to focus a little bit more on the general population who just started their fitness journey, went to the gym, unfortunately, they did not progress accordingly or slow enough. They were too enthusiastic in lifting heavier because they know they can and then end up injuring themselves. So which makes me realize that when you were talking about your personal experience about experiencing pain, like in the younger days, the body heals pretty well. So it's like, you experience a little bit of pain.
Right? It's just...
Exactly. So
everything breaks down.
I was quite lucky to actually recover from also some form of back injuries. But I know that time I definitely didn't go through a proper rehab. So every now and then, if I'm not careful or I'm a little bit lazy on my warm-up, I do get like triggered with some discomfort and pain. But I recognize not everybody understand what pain is about.
Yes.
So Luke, maybe can help us or help our listeners to understand a little bit more about pain. What should they look for, or how should they perceive pain?
Okay, so that's a good question. While the question can be very broad, but for the context of this particular episode, let's just revolve it around fitness, right? And pain we have all types. There's so many types of pain. We have musculoskeletal pain, we have neuropathic pain, we have all kinds of pains that, it can be in a form of muscle, tendon, ligament, nerve. And so getting our clients to understand every type of pain is going to be difficult. That's usually the job of a doctor. But to give the simple understanding to our clients, it's learning about differentiating, okay, what is maybe say good pain, manageable pain, and pain that you should pay attention to. Okay? Like for instance, when you're doing a particular exercise and you feel that burning sensation in your muscle, let's just say doing like a lot of squats and you feel your thighs burning. So most trainers would say, the pain is good, feel the burn, and then depending on the trainer, no pain, no gain kind, right? So I'd just like to highlight that no pain, no gain is a terrible way to go about exercising. If you are experiencing a lot of pain, you should actually pay attention to that. But to answer your question, I think that once it's really up to the coach, especially, and if you are a listener, listening to this episode, you have to understand what the different types of pains are. As I mentioned before, there is the good kind, the kind that helps you grow and progress. We call it good stress, basically, right? And there is discomfort or manageable pain where, in my experience, if you are someone who is pushing yourself, right? You could be an athlete, you could be a weekend warrior, you could be just someone in the gym. Yes, you're there to build a healthy lifestyle. You're just there to get fitter. But at some point, you are going to be pushing yourself. And what people need to understand is that no matter how careful you are, how properly you do an exercise, how well you execute an exercise, there is always going to be a possibility of getting injured. You cannot escape that, right? It could not be because you had bad form. It could be just maybe really, really bad luck. Perhaps you're doing 10 reps, 9 reps are perfect, and then 1 rep you just angle it differently and then something happens. I'm not saying that despite having good technique, you're gonna get really badly injured. It does reduce the chance, but understanding this will help you progress much, much better in your training. So when it comes to pain, understanding it is a matter of getting to know, okay, if, for example, what is this pain trying to tell me? If I do an exercise, I feel the discomfort, I feel the soreness goes away, I realize I got stronger from that, that's good, right? But if there is a pain that is bothering you, affecting your quality of life, we call it, then it's something worth actually looking into. Like for example, you do an exercise, you feel the soreness, and then for some reason, there's this maybe lingering discomfort that's been there for more than, say, 3 days, 4 days, and it's still there, it's persisting. In fact, you notice when you do certain movements, it gets worse. So that's the kind of pain that you actually want to pay attention to. It's your body's way of telling you, okay, something's not right. Temporary discomfort, that goes away. But pain that stays more than a few days or even weeks should be something that you address.
Yeah, I think what is also very helpful is that on a normal basis, everyone should be paying attention to how their body feels.
Correct.
Because there is a certain form of baseline there that they understand, this is not normal. So that awareness, because I do notice for example, sometimes we training our clients who are very, very new to strength training.
Yes.
They really don't know what to expect. Sometimes I even get feedback stretching is a form of pain. That's where how can I help them to articulate better or educate them better that yes, to a certain point, if you are not flexible and you stretch, it does feel like it's a pain. But instead of saying, oh, everything is classified as pain, stretch is a stretch feeling.
Yes.
Whereby it gets a little bit uncomfortable. But pain, it's a different case.
Yes.
Would you say that's the case?
Yes, to a certain degree, I would say that is the case. But I think it's the reason why new clients have difficulty understanding this, because they don't really know how to differentiate between, as I mentioned, what is good pain, bad pain, and discomfort. So that's why usually when working with clients, you give them a range or a scale to work with on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being that you're not feeling much or anything at all. 10 being that it's really, really painful, that you're crying, like tears are coming out of your eyes. So by giving them this scale, you tell them, okay, I want you to be about a 6 or 7. And 6 or 7 is this, this, and this. So there is a standardized scale that we can use, or there is a scale that the coaches will come up for themselves. But at the end, it starts to be standardized in some form or way. So by guiding the client or the individual through this scale, they can more or less realize, okay, this is still, as long as within this range, it's good. It's good kind of stretch. The pain that you feel is good. But if, again, crying or like tearing up when you are doing a particular exercise or stretch, then it's counterproductive to continue doing that. I think what you said just now was very correct in the sense that to them, pain is pain. And a lot of them actually don't understand that when you train, even for whatever reasons or goals that you may have for fitness, you are going to experience some level of discomfort. As with anything in life, if you want to get better at it, you cannot stay comfortable. I'm sorry, but I know this podcast is about fitness, but I feel like I'm giving life advice right now. If you want to be successful at life, it's the same thing. You're going to have to go through some discomfort. Now, how much discomfort you're willing to tolerate, that's very individualized. Athletes at the top of their game, they endure the highest degree of discomfort. They have to wake up at 5 a.m., go for runs, prepare their meals, do 3 hours of training every day, sometimes twice a day. But if that's not your life and that's not your goal, you don't need to do that.
Well, I guess this truth does hurt. Many people wouldn't like to hear this, but well, it is what it is, and I'm glad that you bring it out because unfortunately, this is a mindset shift that is required if we want to progress and improve.
Yes, correct.
Yep. Okay, in this pain management journey, right, us as coaches, we know that there's only so much that we can help our clients to understand pain because we don't have the depth of knowledge. So more often than not, we tend to ask our clients to seek help from professionals like you, like to see a physio. But every time this kind of topic brought up, I personally sense a bit of a hesitance. And I wonder what might lead to such fear or skeptical sense of seeing a physio. Maybe you could let us know a little bit more about from your end. Have you encountered this sentiment as well? And what might help clients to understand a little bit more about this recovery journey with a physio?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in my experience, right, there's actually several reasons why someone would show hesitancy or even skepticism about seeing a physio. One of the reasons could be that they have seen a physio, but they just had a bad experience. Or they saw a physio and they didn't have a good experience in a sense that the physio didn't solve their problem. They're still in pain. Not knowing that physio isn't a one fix. One fix. Yeah, you come in one time and then you fix. It's not like you go to the doctor for flu and then they give you antibiotics and then within several days it's gone, right? Physiotherapy is an ongoing process. And it takes place outside of the center as much as it does take place in the center.
Really? Not just when they are with you?
No. That is the reason, thankfully, I still have a job because a lot of my patients don't like to do their homework, so they see me all the time. But I'm just kidding, of course. Another reason is because of fear, right? Fear of the unknown. Fear of not knowing what to expect. It's very similar when you go into a room that's pitch black. The moment you step into the room, you start getting scared. Why? Because you can't see anything, you don't know what to expect, you don't know what's there. It's a very normal human experience and human reaction. So when you tell someone to do something or go see someone for something that they're having, it's normal to react the way they react. But it's also important to understand in order to help them with this hesitancy and this skepticism to explain it to them. In fact, one of the ways that you can get them to go past it is to recommend a physiotherapist whom you trust. Prior to you recommending the physio, you can just explain to them a little bit about how the process works if you are familiar with it. Like you can even explain your own experience. That way, the client will better relate to you. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what, at least they have a sense of expectation set. And then when they see this physio whom you recommended, I'm hoping it's a good physio, because if the experience goes bad, then it's on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then once they see the physio, then they'll be more inclined, oh, okay, this is how the things work. But if you ask me, the reason for the hesitancy and the skepticism usually falls because of one of few things. Either had a bad experience, or they had an experience that wasn't good, they're just not sure how things works, or they just don't believe in it. There are people out there that they just don't believe in like seeing someone for this. They feel like, you'll just go away eventually. You know, sometimes they wait too long, then the problem becomes chronic.
And it takes a
longer time to heal. Correct.
Yep.
So again, you just have to ask them, okay, why do you feel that you don't want to see a physiotherapist? And then they say like, oh, I already have you. Can't you help me? Yeah.
Oh no. I hear that too often too as well. And this is where I really feel like today's podcast is going to be very helpful, because what's better than hearing firsthand from a physio that will describe the process from phase 1, phase 2 to the point whereby you're fully recovered and then go back to the trainer.
Yes.
So can we get to talk a little bit more in regards to like how are the phases like?
Okay. All right.
What happens when a client says had a somewhat chronic injury, so like ongoing shoulder pain, and then they discover that for a certain pressing motion, it's painful, uncomfortable, and then they decided to see a physio. What should they be expecting?
So in your example, the client has shoulder pain and they want to see a physio, correct? So the process in which happens is, first things first, the patient will come to see me, or the client will come to see me. I'll put them through an assessment. But before the assessment takes place, what's most important is you get a history. You must always take the history. Similar like coaching, you get them to tell you, okay, what the history has been in terms of training, nutrition, or depending on what your consult will be. So my assessment is part assessment, part consult. I ask them, okay, what happened first? And then you say, I got. Sometimes they don't know how they got injured. They just say that, one day I woke up, my shoulder pain. And then I say, okay. So we also help them to trace it back for them if we can. We tell, okay, what's the last thing you remember doing before this? And they said, I was doing like shoulder presses, and then I felt like a click or something. And then, okay, just a few more details. Were you going heavy? So on and so on. So all these small details builds a picture for the therapist. It builds the picture for the therapist to know, okay, what assessment tools can I use? What could it be? What kind of treatment or intervention can I use with him? So once you get a proper history done, the therapist that's treating the client, I'll get a proper history. I'll put them through the assessment based on what he told me. It helps to narrow things down a lot more. So once I've got an assessment done, okay, I suspect, okay, it's a shoulder impingement. Unless it's very, very clear-cut sign that it is this issue, I will move on to the intervention. But until then, I still have to rule out other things. As
you are talking, I suddenly have this image in mind, right? Like people that get, shoulder ache, neck ache. One of the options that they go for is a massage. They'll be like, that's the fastest way to feel better.
Yeah.
But the process would be, they will have to go back to the massage again and again, because that's what happened. They don't take history. They don't understand how things happen. But yeah, it was just funny as you are talking about that. I was like just having, massage is quite comfortable.
Funnily enough, physiotherapists are like known as glorified masseuses. You have no idea how many times people come in like, so I'll be like, how can I help you? And it's like, muscle tight, I can give you massage. I'm like, I didn't spend like 4 or 5 years studying just to give people massages. I can do something else better for you. And they go like, yeah, but I still want a massage. I was like, there's like a spa down there. You can just go down there.
You mean I can't just come in, pay you, and then just lie down on the treatment table and do nothing?
I mean, like, you can, but why? I mean, it's a lot cheaper if you go down there for massage. But you are very true in the sense that when people feel stiffness and for this, the first thing to go to is massage. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like putting down these other masseuses and stuff. Some of them actually do a good job. I personally go for massages as well. It does act as a form of recovery. But you have to understand that is a certain point where massaging may actually make your issue worse, right? If you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't know what you have, it could make it worse. And especially if the masseuse that's working on you is fairly new and they just apply a little bit pressure.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, if they apply like the wrong amount of pressure at the wrong area, and that's it. Your injury just ran from a pain scale of like 6 to 9. You see what I mean? And then you start crying there, right? And then I'm smiling there. It's like, I'm just kidding. The part about the treatment, right? After I've done my assessment, I'm saying that it's a nerve impingement based on this, and this. But as the process is happening, I'm explaining to the client. I'm not just keeping quiet and moving the client here and there and then treating the client. No, I'm making conversation with the client, because it is important to get the client healthy. It's also important to educate the client. It is no different than training. When you coach someone, you try to get them stronger, build their strength. But at the same time, you tell them, okay, we're going to do this exercise. Why? Because this exercise helps you with this, and this. So that's the same thing with the treatment and intervention. I'm doing this treatment because this, and this. And then after the treatment is done, after the intervention is done, there's usually something called HEP, Home Education Program, which I'm not sure if they're still using that term. Yeah, homework. It's homework. It's really homework. I show them, okay, if you want to get better, you want to be able to do this exercise, that exercise, and you do it for this amount of sets, this amount of reps, this amount of times in a week. And then that's usually how the process goes. And then I tell them, okay, they usually ask, okay, when should I see you next? I tell them, okay, if your symptoms are getting better, and then you can come and see me in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. If the symptoms are not getting better at a fast enough rate or not getting better at all, you can see me the following week, or depending on their schedule. But it also really depends on the severity of what the person has. If it's like a strain or a sprain, then usually just from strengthening it, they can be well on their way. One session is totally fine as long as they do their homework. Again, it's a light sprain or strain. If it's a really severe strain, then they may need a few more sessions. But that's usually how the process works. From the moment they enter into my office and the moment they leave the building, they have to be taken care of. They have to know what is it they have, how they got it, what treatment was done on them, what intervention was done on them, what they should do to get better, and whether or not they should come back.
So interesting that I actually caught on one word that you use, which is in order to recover, you use the word strengthening rather than rest. If possible, like educate our listeners, why strengthening and not resting?
Okay. For the longest time, the go-to answer from many health professionals when you sustain an injury, rest. But that's a very, very old and outdated method. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that no matter what injury you have, you should always go train. No, I'm saying that rest is still best, but also knowing when to rest. Like, if a doctor says, oh, you have this, you should just rest for 3 months. That's terrible advice. I mean, if the person has a strain, you're telling them, oh, they should rest for 3 months and not do anything, wouldn't that make it worse?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so when clients come to me, depending on what they have, majority of the times my answer is, no, you don't need to rest. You can still exercise and train. Just, we like to say, work around it. Right? You still need to be healthy, because if you're resting, it's just going to be making your whole body weaker. Unless you do really need that rest after like a very, very, very intense training cycle, you haven't had a proper break, and then you've really sustained an injury, then during that period, yes, then you can rest. But for the most part, if you sustain an injury, you can rest maybe a day or 2, 3 days maybe, most. But it's always encouraged to get back onto a strength program. But you need to work with someone who is knowledgeable enough to progress you from your current state, which is why I chose to go into physiotherapy, and more specifically into treating athletes, or at least sports people. It's because I needed to equip myself with the knowledge to get someone who's either healthy to even healthier, or someone who's fit to fitter, but at the same time someone who's injured to a non-injured state, and then some more. So you need to be able to work with someone who's able to get you to progress through those stages.
And I would like to add on top of that is that I recognize a lot of the time people, when they rest for too long, the psychological part of what we just mentioned before, fear of pain, kind of like compound and just gets blow up so much that it's disproportionate to the actual state of injury. Whereby, because they have rested for so long, muscle starts to get weaker. They don't feel as strong. They feel less stable. They cannot do the movement as well as before. And then they equate that to the outcome of injury as compared to an outcome of inactivity. Yeah, I feel that as much as, yes, rest is important, but you may not need to exercise, but you do need to move a lot more.
Correct.
maintain some form of range of motion, to keep the blood circulation going, keep things simple, but definitely not inactivity.
Correct. So you're very correct in that part. So basically the process, when we do weight training and we build muscle, the act of building muscle is what we term hypertrophy. The opposite of that is atrophy, is when the muscle reduces, right, in size. That is usually what happens when we become inactive for a prolonged period of time. Our muscles are no longer being stressed from weight training, and it has no need to retain that size or that strength.
Oh, you mean it doesn't stay?
Doesn't
the
stay.
way?
Doesn't stay. If it did stay, every bodybuilder in the 70s, 80s, it'd still be very big. Very big. But as you can see, they're not that big anymore, right? And that's usually when people become too inactive and they return to weight training and they feel that they don't progress into it gradually. They think that, oh, I could lift X amount of weight before I got injured. I feel fine. I should be able to lift X amount of weight again. Not knowing that their strength and their stamina and endurance all have dropped since their level of inactivity has been there. So that's usually when another injury would occur. It's important to take note that resting does have its benefits, but also too much resting can hinder your progress as well.
Sorry guys, so if you intend to use the excuse of I can't really come to the gym or do my sessions because I've injured, we will save this podcast and make sure that we replay it to you over and over again.
Yes, please do. Okay, this is funny. It's a funny thing because like my client will tell me like, they'll text me like the day before, Coach, I can't come into training and my upper body sore. I'm like, you got legs, right? Come to training, you train your legs. Or you still complaining like you can't make for your session. You can still train your legs. So like, it's funny when clients message me that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, well, you saying you don't want to come in because you don't want to train, or you don't want to just train your like in general,
I guess coaches who understand about this approach, unfortunate for the clients, this excuse cannot be used anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you just got called out, I guess.
Whoops. Okay, talking about clients, what is one memory that you have in terms of a successful case of transitioning a client from being skeptical about pain and injury to achieving performance? Because I do believe that sometimes people overlooked that this process can happen. It's not just theoretical that if you do this, then that's going to happen. There are a lot of amazing stories out there, and with your unique identity of a coach as well as a physiotherapy, I think coming from you would be very empowering for our listeners.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I do have actually many examples. A large part of my clientele actually are individuals who have sustained very bad injuries and injuries that required surgery and things like that. But I actually realized I didn't answer the previous question properly in regards to the mindset coming into training after sustaining an injury. And it's actually a very real thing. I personally have gone through it. It's just that when you sustain an injury from doing a particular movement, depending especially if the injury is really bad, like the injury caused you a lot of pain and pain sticks with you. It's very normal to be hesitant when you approach, especially, okay, maybe you did an exercise. You can do the lighter weights. But as soon as you come closer to the weight that injured you, your body just reacts. It's just like, whoa, okay, I remember, it just flashbacks, okay, I remember injuring myself at this weight. I'm so scared. Or maybe it's not an exercise, maybe it's a movement. When you're doing speed drills and then you remember you tore your ACL doing this particular speed drill and the fear kicks in. It's very difficult to bring yourself to do it, especially when you've had that injury. So you shouldn't feel bad, and this is for the listeners out there, right? You shouldn't feel bad that, oh, I can't progress past this stage because I'm too scared. Being scared is fine. Like when I got my injury, I was scared to like even get under an empty bar. Yeah, because and I was squatting like 200 kilos at a time, right? And when I injured my back, I was just so scared to get under an empty bar. An empty bar is 20 kgs. But I slowly did it anyway. And it was not like I did it alone. I have help. But ultimately what got me to do it was I had to believe in myself. I had to believe in my therapist. I had to believe in my coach. I just told myself, just slowly. Even if it meant adding 1 kilo on the bar every training session, I just had to do it. And it's really about that mindset, what you tell yourself in that moment. So like if it comes to you and that exercise or you and the bar or you and whatever, right? It's in that moment you have to ask yourself, okay, this is a defining moment for me. Am I going to let this keep me in fear for the rest of my life? Or am I going to try it and at least know what happened? If I do it and I succeed, congratulations, you've passed your fear. You're ready to move on to biggest. If you do it and you don't succeed, at least you know, okay, I still tried my best. Trying, at the end of the day, trying your best is still better than not trying. And I can guarantee you, from someone who's injured himself and having that fear, nothing feels better than at least trying. Don't get me wrong, I've still failed many times after that, but that fear was no longer there. Because I knew that if I failed, I could still get back up. I knew how to get stronger. I knew how to get better.
I think when it comes to injury and fear, the realistic expectation is not to assume that things will be back to normal without some form of difficulties.
Of course.
It's like you say, try and try and try again. And ultimately, you will get something out of trying as compared to just, oh my God, I don't think I can do it. I really can't. And that emotion is a lot more detrimental than people can imagine. That fear, that freeze that they have.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you actually shared your experience as well to motivate our listeners.
Actually, there's even another point to add on, especially with the example I'm about to give, right? And this is very contradictory to what people have believed about rehab, and this ties into everything about pain management, about rehab, and also why clients feel that hesitancy. It's that the bad experience I told you about, and this is what people, especially listeners, need to understand, is that when you go for rehab, you're going to expect some level of discomfort also, because you got injured.
You mean they are not babied? They are not supposed to be babied? Like,
no.
It's pain. It's okay. You back off. Don't push yourself too much.
No.
Not that direction.
In fact, believe it or not, you actually have to endure a little bit more pain than normal, because remember, you've just sustained an injury. If you go for rehab and you don't feel the discomfort and pain, why are you there? It means you're healthy already, right? For example, you're in a cast. You just broke your arm. You're in a cast. Like I mentioned just now, when you don't move your muscle for so long, you atrophy. I don't know whether you've seen someone or whether it's happened to you before, but usually when you have a cast on, they remove it, your arm is like smaller than the other arm.
I think I've seen
such. It's a bit weird. Like it looks significantly smaller. Basically, when you try to move, they're super slow, they have limited range, and then when the therapist tries to get straightened, they feel discomfort. So rehab, believe it or not, you will undergo many levels of discomfort. But just remember, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. In order to get better, you're going to have to go through discomfort, get stronger, and get better. So that's probably why some people have that hesitancy. They said, I went for physio, it was really bad. The therapist was like putting me through so much pain. And there is certain levels of discomfort, and there's really bad therapists. Therapists that just, you're supposed to feel pain. Pop, they just stretch the person until they feel so much pain. So if you at least go in with the expectation, okay, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's for the best. It's because I want to become better. But I just want to put a silver lining. Not all interventions are going to end up in pain. Some are painless. I
think our listeners would be wondering, what are the painless injuries that I might not mind getting?
I'm not sure about that either, but it really depends on your pain tolerance. Really, I've had some people, especially some people that are small in structure, they can really handle and tolerate a lot of pain. And I've got some big dudes that come in and they start like, they're just like, it's like, my man, you're bigger than me. It's like, some people's pain tolerance are just different. And sometimes it's funny. It's really funny because when you press them, you knead them, you hit them on his muscle, and you see these guys are full of tattoos, and they're like, you had needles done on you, and you're just like screaming from this, right? But that's the kind of like the fun, quote unquote, fun part of being a therapist. You know where all the sensitive muscles and parts are for people. So it's just like,
and watch their reaction too.
Yeah, just watch their reaction. Like, So just bringing over to the example of my clients, I've had clients who had Achilles tendon ruptures, like complete ruptures from playing squash. I've had clients who've torn multiple ligaments, ACL, PCL, LCL, complete tears, and had to go for reconstructive surgery. I've had clients that have torn pecs, torn groin muscles, and like when I say tear, I mean complete detachment from their surfaces, their bone structures, right? They're so scared. Some of them who've had ACL tears, they can barely squat, they can barely lunge. And when you tell them to make a slight lunge or squat, you can watch their face reaction go from normal to a pain scale jumps from 1 to 10 straight away. They're just in that immobile, in that much pain, because after the reconstruction surgery and all that, they just haven't gotten around to exercising.
But to also give our listeners an idea, this kind of reconstruction injuries or surgery, how long would it take if one person were to be very diligent with their homework and their rehab process and someone who doesn't do anything and kind of like let it heal?
So someone who does their homework and someone who doesn't do their homework, it's really like school. If you don't do your homework, are you really going to progress in that subject? You can't expect that things will just like get better, especially with the human body. It is remarkably resilient. I can tell you that. The human body is amazing at healing and adapting. But at the same time, you need to be able to give it a direction in where it should heal and where it should recover in. So that's why the homework is there. It's like the body is like, okay, I want to get better, but I don't know where to get better. So you doing the homework tells the body where it should get better at. But to answer your question, it depends. Even if you do everything right, it could still take some time. A lot of factors come into play. Whether you're young versus whether you're old. Do you have any pre-existing medical conditions? It's not always a straightforward answer. There is a framework we work out of, like fractures, depending on which fracture you have, what type of fracture. The healing process can go from several weeks to several months, maybe years even. So we don't really like give a definitive straight answer like, oh, if you have a humerus fracture, you will get about 4 months, 5 months to heal. We don't say that. We tell them best case scenario.
I actually quite like the answer because it does depends on situation, it depends on individual, it depends on age. So many factors are in play, and I feel it's good for everyone to hear this from you to make sure that the expectation is set right. Yeah, otherwise it's only another factor that they become skeptical in trying to visit a physio because the expectation of if I pay the money means I should get better.
Yes.
It's a lovely chat with you today.
Yes.
If there is 2 key takeaways that you would like our listeners to have, what would you tell them?
Okay, definitely the first thing would be prioritize strength training. Honestly speaking, and I'm not being biased or anything, but a tremendously large amount of problems can be solved. Injuries, everything can be solved from doing strength training. Yes, there are instances where you get an injury from sudden movements, right? Maybe a quick pivot, you tear your ACL. That's unavoidable. When you're in the heat of the moment, when you're playing sports very actively, very rigorously, when you're pushing yourself to the limits, injuries will happen. That's fine. Getting stronger is honestly the key to longevity and the key to reduced injuries. When you are strong, your body becomes tougher and resilient and much, much harder to break. So strength training, take the proactive approach. Before you reach a point where, I hurt myself, then I have to go see a physio, you can avoid that entire trip. I'm basically killing my business by saying that just get stronger.
This is where I can tie back to the massage. You can go for massage before getting injured to keep your muscles relaxed, loose, flexible, so that when you do something, I guess, unpredictable for the body, it doesn't break so easily. That's where, we can still make friends with masseurs. We're not saying that they're not good enough. It's just the timing. When do we see who?
If you're looking for a massage or a masseuse, I would highly recommend that you find a masseuse that has a sports background, that actually specializes in proper massaging for athletes, because they are equipped with the knowledge to actually know how much pressure to apply, and they know the contraindications, which is very, very important. Like there are certain parts when you can give an athlete a massage and when you can't give an athlete a massage. We both know that if a muscle becomes too relaxed at a certain point, it becomes difficult to engage in muscle. And in some sports, you need a certain level of rigidity in your muscle to be able to fire on demand, right? Too relaxed, it's like, so that'll be the first one. I think the second key point would be if your trainer or therapist prescribes you something to do for that injury or thing, please do it. Trust me, we hate it as much as you do, as we don't want to constantly be reminding you, hey, did you do your homework? Hey, did you do this? We want you to get better. That's plain and simple. Okay.
Can I negotiate on my client's behalf? How little should I be doing? Like the bare minimal? Like just hit the bare minimum. What would you recommend?
If you want to do the bare minimum, then you have to be okay with getting the bare minimum results. It's simple as that. Like when clients tell me like, okay, like I want to look like this by end of the year, but I only want to train once a week and I still want to be able to go out drinking with my friends. I'm like, good luck. I want to see that happen too. If you manage to make that happen, please teach me.
I've tried. Sorry. The truth is...
Yeah, sorry. Bare minimum results. Bare minimum effort gets you bare minimum results. And there's just no way around it.
All right. Thanks for listening. I hope that this empowers you to move well and live more. Look, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
I am really sure that many people would like to know you a little bit more. Can you tell our listeners where can they look for you?
Okay. Shameless plug. I'm just going to plug in a few things. My coaching Instagram is Coach Luke Lango. If you're looking for work to be done like physio, you can always find me at my studio, which is Flex Mont Physio Fitness. It's the logo of a bird. and I also do podcasts, which is Barbell Matchas. So these are the 3 platforms that I operate out of.
Okay, guys, remember, check Luke out. And if you actually would like to have more of this content or topic, feel free to DM us, because we can definitely invite Luke onto our podcast again.
I'd love to be on again.
Yes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us to reach more listeners by sharing it on your socials. If you have any questions or topics that you would like us to cover, DM us on our Instagram at Move Private Fitness, and we'll see what we can do.
Join us next time for more practical lessons and inspiration to help you improve your overall quality of life. In the meantime, keep moving well, feeling well, and living more. Yeah.